pop off before we start. This one's loose enough.
Okay, hello folks. Tonight we're examining Early Times Kentucky Whiskey. I've been doing hangouts, the taste challenges with it. I did a solo review. I was very impressed when I did the solo review because for $8.99, you figure you're not going to get much. Joined by William Kepley of North Carolina. I'm here in Louisiana. This is not some new brand. We were going to have John and Neil. He was hot to join us. He was really excited, but unfortunately, he had to contact me a little while ago and said he had a family emergency. So I'm going to pray for him, whatever's going on. He didn't give me any details. I hope it's okay. William, you kind of came up with this idea to do the examination because you had purchased a little 50 milliliter bottle. We don't get too many of those around here, but I see some places that have a plethora of them, which is perfect for tasting. Not so good if you're going to do taste challenges, however.
The 50 milliliter is a pretty good size for a tasting. You get enough of it, you get a pretty good idea of what it is. And for 99 cents for this, that's not bad at all. Compared to like a mini of the Jack Daniels is $2.50. So 99 cents versus $2.50. And some of them fall in sort of in between those two parameters. But
now I was a little shook up yesterday because I did a taste challenge and I got it right, and I said, "Oh, I'm such a great expert now." But the audio, I was trying to use Opera, and I'm going to try to check my settings. You were talking about going into the control panel and all, but the Opera didn't work any better than Chrome, so I deleted it. I said, "Oh, I'll just delete it, and I can reference back to it." So I did round 2, which is recorded, and I was so confident. Oh yes, this will be as easy as pie, because I was going against Kentucky Gentleman, and you and I went on a long time about Kentucky Gentleman, and we found it was so dull. It was worth no more than a regular blended whiskey. But I was shocked to the bone, to the core, when I got it wrong. I did a third video, which was the second that is currently recorded, and I got it right. So I said, well, I don't know. I got it right 2 out of 3 times, but still, I couldn't believe it. Anyway, but like you said, that's the risk of doing it on air live. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if I wanted to stage things, I would just record them and post whatever came out in my favor, right?
Sometimes things happen. Chaminade beat Virginia and Ralph Sampson on the island. So things can happen.
Right. Yeah, right. At the Maui Classic.
Yeah.
You can tell now you can tell the people a little bit about this product, Early Times. It's not, like I said, it didn't just start last year. It really lives up to its name as far as the age.
It's it's the #1 selling blended whiskey in this country, and it's the #4 selling bourbon worldwide. Bourbon meaning that outside the United States they can term it as a bourbon. So it's hugely popular, and it doesn't. The fact that it's not a straight bourbon in the United States hasn't hurt the sales any. I mean, it still sells very well. So I think it's one of the more valued brands that Brown-Forman has in their portfolio. It's there's a loyal cadre of drinkers of it, and it seems to found its niche a long time ago, and doesn't seem to have fallen off any for that matter. But
yeah, it's very popular around here. As far as you see it everywhere, you can tell when they're not popular because you don't see them everywhere. But you go in any store, they've got Early Times, right? I've seen it my whole life. I didn't think much about it. I just saw it, didn't think ill or favorable towards it. I decided, well, it's $8.99. Why not buy it? There is only one qualification there's only one stipulation that makes this not a bourbon. And it's not the ingredients.
The barrel. The use of used barrels. Yeah, so it's not the ingredient content, but it'd be interesting to, if they did, what the taste difference would be.
Yeah.
If to get a batch from a new barrel, a charred new barrel, and then the used one.
And there are variants of this. There are some flavored versions, which I've seen, but they don't talk about it on the website. A lot of these companies, they have what I call hidden brands. They exist, but they don't reference them, nor do they even list them in their even in their nutritional lineup for some strange reason.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still available or not, but at one time they had a early Times 354, which met the legal requirements of a straight bourbon. I've never seen that. I'm not aware if it's available still or in this area. I just know that at one time they did have that.
Yeah, I saw that too when I was doing some research. Now, if you look at the label, it does say 354, distillery number 354, early Times Kentucky. It says aged in oak for a taste worth the wait. Now, how long are you waiting? Well, only 3 years, because it says matured at least 36 months, and I'm sure it's no longer than that. And I like how they term it reused cooperage.
That's a new word. That's a new word I learned in this whiskey journey. It was the cooperage.
Reused cooperage.
Yeah. 6 months before, I probably thought it was Jackie Cooper, like a cooperage, like
yeah, but a cooper is a person who builds barrels.
Yeah. And that one brand, the Cooper's Craft, was dedicated to those craftsmen. Another Brown-Forman brand, which I've had it. It's rather expensive. That's probably been the most expensive one I've had so far. I mean, it's not uber expensive, but it's above what I usually have.
Cooper's Craft. Now it's a nice looking bottle, nothing spectacular, but it's, you know, stately. The website for Early Times doesn't tell you much. It spends more time on promotionals and things like that than the actual product, but that's not too uncommon. People that buy this probably aren't researching.
Yeah, it's a brand they love. It sells itself.
Yeah.
Just put it out there, and it does its thing. So
we know it's not blended with any grain neutral spirits, though, to my knowledge. Doesn't talk about that on the bottle. I think they have to list that, don't they, if it has any percentage?
Yeah, that would put it a step above many of the bottom shelf and some of the cheaper brands, so that it does have that in its favor. And
it's at least 51% corn. I'm assuming they use barley malt and rye.
Yeah, I never saw the breakdown.
No, neither me.
Most of your straight ones use a minimum of 75% corn, maybe, and 1510 to 1312 would be for the next two, the barley and the rye or whatever their other ingredient is. But usually when they say at least, it's usually that one right there.
Yeah, right.
At least 51. It's 51. There's no fudge. So,
and it's been on the market since 1860. So one of the older brands.
That would, yeah. So it predates the Civil War by a year.
Yeah.
That's.
Well, I think it was acquired by Brown-Forman around 1923 or somewhere in the mid-20s. It's been a Brown-Forman brand ever since. Why it got so popular that the area near the brewery was renamed Early Times Kentucky.
Yeah, and this one is distilled at their Shively facility in Kentucky.
Shively, okay. Not a place that offers tours, I don't believe. You know, there's a lot of facilities in Kentucky that offer tours, but I think the vast majority do not. They just work in facilities. They don't offer any kind of tour. You've had this before or not?
I had 2 minis. I drank one.
Okay. I've been drinking on it, and like I said, doing the taste challenges. I still need to put it up against Ancient Age, Jethro T. Boots, Jack Daniels number 7, you know, the green label, Jim Beam, and Jim Beam Choice. So I got a lot of showdowns to do. Now, I'll be very curious, because if it can go toe to toe with Jack Daniels and Jim Beam, well, that'll answer a lot of questions like what's the value leader, right?
Right. It's because it is a significant difference.
Yeah, talking $8.99 a bottle. If I get the same size Jack Daniels bottle, it'll be $22.99.
Yeah, it's not like, well, I'll spend that extra couple of bucks. When you're talking about that disparity, and this comes pretty close to it, I mean, it'd be tough to turn away from it.
Right. And this is about as low price as you're going to find.
It is. That's rock bottom. To get less than this, it's almost got to be the private label. Or there are a few in Kentucky that you can find cheaper, a little bit cheaper than that. But generally, for the most of the states, this is about as cheap as you're going to get.
And the ones you're getting are the blends, the 80-20.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any straight whiskeys for under $8.99.
No, this price point is more like the 80-20. Or one's a 72.5.
Yeah, I found some oddball stuff on my last trip. Well, I guess we may as well break it open. I invited some other people. I guess I can't make it, like the drunken one and a few other people, but that was just kind of short notice. But I think that's enough for one day. And those beer taste challenges have been fascinating. I've been doing a lot of those. I guess I'll get burned out eventually in the next few weeks. But I figure while I'm in the caught up in it, I may as well go full bore with it.
In the zone.
Huh? In the zone, yeah. Why not go full bore? You know? So I've got ice beer challenges. I've got malt liquor challenges. And one more thing before I forget, because I know I'll forget. I was talking about we were talking about qualifications for bourbon and whatnot. I found in Western Louisiana, when I was on a road trip to Texas earlier this month, well, actually last week, I found a 24-ounce can of Schlitz Gold Bull, you know, the VSL.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about that, it's very powerful, 8.5% alcohol. Not to mention, it's also charcoal filtered, which they emphasize on their website. You know, most beers are not charcoal filtered. I remember back in the 90s, they would always sort of tout that Old English 800 was charcoal filtered. So I'm curious to see if it'll make a difference, and I've had it before, but I'm trying to figure out why they would do it, you know? What would be the reasoning? But Pabst does talk about it, so.
There may be no reasoning, but it just might be a marketing. It's like the fire brewed Strohs.
Right.
You know, these things, you know, whether it makes an actual difference or not, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but they deem it important enough that they put it as part of their marketing of the beer, at least for a period of time. And it may be if they, you know, in the future, they will quietly slip away from that.
I was wondering what facility they would be charcoal filtering, because they would have to have that setup, right?
Yeah, well, fortunately, that's a Pabst brand brewed by Miller Coors Brewery, so it'll be easy to see that where that's actually brewed from.
Right.
A simple, you know.
Yeah, I have the can.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder though how many of these beers are being put through that filter, you know. Strange. Anyway, you get the VSL in your area, don't you?
Right.
Yeah, so I have that 24-ounce can. If you ever want to tackle that, let me know, because I would have a very limited ability to recast it. In other words, I got one can, and that's all I'm going to get probably for a year or two, because I don't have access to it unless I travel 200 miles. So.
I can get a can of it.
Yeah, so kind of keep that mentally, you know, keep that as a mental note. I don't remember the date on my can, but I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty good date, like real good.
A lot of the high gravity beers tend to have pretty good dates, at least the ones in this area. We're already seeing stuff like January of 2018.
Yeah, I think mine might have said March.
Yeah, really, that is. Well, that's the.
Well, the appearance on this is caramel. It's a darker product than your blended. To me, it's an orange, almost a copper. I see that through the video looking at yours.
Yeah.
I want to read some comments real fast. Ryan Hackett says, "Hey, I enjoyed the taste challenges. Please keep it up." I will until I get sick of it, you know, which could be sooner than later. Leandro says, Leandro Serrano, hey, Leandro, he's out in California. He says, is it storming where you live, Jay? No, it's very clement, very clement. Sean Curtis said, love the beer taste challenges. This whiskey looks great. Yeah, if you go get some, you can join us, in fact, because nobody could use the excuse. Now, people could tell me I don't want to join your challenge. I'll go along with that. But if they told me I can't find early times, then I would know that somebody's lying, you see. Because everybody can get early times now. If they told me they couldn't find Jim Beam Choice, I'd believe it.
As they say, it's available wherever whiskey is sold.
Right. Just like
tagline.
That's right.
Another one of those ubiquitous products.
Ubiquitous, correct. Sort of like Mogen David wine. I mean, you can't say you couldn't find it. May not like it, but you can find it. Well, I'm doing that open mouth breathing method that Jim Beam talks about, and I'll tell you what, it is a good idea. It adds to the experience in the assessment ability. You can go first, but I know what I'm going to say about it.
This has a more pleasant aroma than some of the bottom shelf ones I have tried. It's a little more inviting that you want to sort of taste what it's like. It's not really particularly medicinal. You pick up some of the sweetness, some of the oakiness of it. It's not overwhelming, but it does have a pleasant aroma to it.
Yeah, it's got you could almost say a bold aroma, but I would not use the word harsh.
No, it's not harsh. Like I say, it's rather inviting that you want to taste it. You know, it's
yeah, wood.
Some of the bottom shelf is sort of like the aroma is a caveat in a sense. So, well, I don't know where this is going, but this one is definitely not that way.
No, I'm picking up wood, some oak, vanilla. You know, the typical stereotypical, like the U.S. government says, aromas commonly associated with whiskey. Isn't that the term they use?
It's a template flavor like you get with a lot of the adjunct beers, adjunct lagers and stuff. You drink the more of these, sometimes the more you drink, the more you realize the similarities. And this one fits into there, but it is, I believe, a cut above some of the bottom, the 80-20.
Yeah.
And this is better than like the 51-49 Kentucky Gentleman. I think it has a more pleasant aroma than it does.
I was hoping you wouldn't mention that because I was troubled by my catastrophic failure yesterday morning when I did the taste challenge. So
I just mentioned it because it is rather unique. It is a 51-49, which sort of splits the.
Yeah, and it's usually you rarely see anything like that. I've actually not seen it since then. In fact, well, I know you're gung ho to try it, and so am I to taste it. So
bottoms up are ET.
Yeah. Bottoms up for early times. And like I said, they do make some flavored ones, but you might be hard pressed to find them. It's a light body, light to medium, but certainly on the lighter end. I'm picking up a lot of toothpick wood, you know, that kind of.
I haven't drank much of the whiskey since summer arrived. I went back on the beers more heavily during hot weather.
Yeah.
But this is, I like this. It's pretty flavorful.
Yeah, because you'd think $8.99, this is going to be the exemplification of trash, right?
Yeah.
But then it certainly is not. And I was saying that in an early video that almost had a theory that this is what you would call a lost leader for the company.
Yeah, I'm a novice at this, but somebody told me this was a $15 bottle, like for regular size. I wouldn't laugh at them, to be honest about it. I think it tastes fine. And for many, this might be the plateau that they're comfortable at. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that for $8.99 a bottle. You know, I think that it's always work your way up. You might find something that, you know, don't just grab something by, you know, that's because your buddy drinks it or you think, well, this is probably what I should. It's always easy to work your way up, and it's sort of more fun to do that too. So this is definitely a good stepping stone, even if you decide this is not for me. I don't think you'll regret paying $8.99 for a bottle.
No, and this would be, if I was a regular whiskey drinker, and in fact I'm not. People say, yeah, but you're drinking it every day. Yeah, but that's to get down. People, now this is going to sound crazy. No, that's to extinguish the backstock. Otherwise, I would not be a regular whiskey drinker. Now, in 20 or 30 years, once I'm finished with that whole process, then I'll say, so, you know, I'm back to the normal regimen. But let's just say I was. This would be one I'd get because everything it's hitting all the high notes and the positive notes, and I'm not hitting any negatives at all whatsoever. And I'm not saying that because I have some kind of secret connection to Brown-Forman. I'm not hitting any negatives at all whatsoever. The finish is nice. It's not a drawn out cloying finish, and it doesn't drop off too quickly. Like that Canadian Mist, you turn your head and it was gone like you never had it.
Off the cliff.
But I understand that appeals to many people, so I'm not disparaging it. That there is a market for that type of product. It wouldn't be one of the top in the world if it was there was no market for that. But it just that doesn't appeal to me. But this one seems to just be right in the in that batter's box.
In the wheelhouse.
Yeah, in the wheelhouse.
But yeah, this could be drunk neat. I mean, it's fine. It doesn't embarrass itself to drink it neat, but for those that are inclined to, you know, they like to mix drinks, a mixed drink, it certainly may be an overkill for that. It's more than good enough for that. I mean, if you add a coat to it, you know, you don't have to have a quality whiskey in there or bourbon. So it would serve that purpose, or you could on the rocks or with a couple of drops of water. I mean, it's pretty universal in its usage.
I was with Sean and in Houston last week, and he's not a liquor drinker, you know, but we were at this Mexican restaurant, and you know, you go to a bar and the prices are so ridiculous, you know, like $5 for a bottle of a Mexican beer, Bohemia Classica. You pay $2 more in a grocery store, you get the whole 6-pack. But you know, you expect to get clipped when you go to these places. But we were looking in there, you know, talking and looking, and I was looking at what they had on there, what they would use for mixed drinks. I guess you call it their well drinks. Well liquor. I said, oh boy, look at this. They've got T.W. Samuels. Now, if they had a regular beer that was $5.95 for one beer, I would almost hate to imagine what an old fashioned would be, a highball. But I would imagine probably $8.50. But they're using T.W. Samuels, which is a good, well, only $1 cheaper than this, but it's an 80-20 blend. But so like you're saying, you can you would almost want to not use this for a mixed drink. You would want to save the T.W. Samuels for that. Although I can't say anything bad about that. I've never had that product before. I do have a bottle in the cabinet. But you know what I mean? It's almost like you'd want to save this for the neat consumption.
It's fine neat.
I'm still a little shook up about the Kentucky Gentleman, though. That threw me for a loop. I was thinking that kept bothering me all day. I said, oh boy, how could you get it wrong? Because we had gone on and on about Kentucky Gentleman, and there I go. It just goes to show you can't be too overconfident with these things. But there's a burn in it, but it's not. I don't know. I'm going totally on recollection now. So I would preface what I'm about to say by telling people, don't take what I'm saying, you know, don't put any stock into it, but from recollection only. I find this more pleasant than Jack Daniels, but I would have to absolutely do a blind taste test to put any kind of faith in that statement. So you can disregard it, but I'm only going by recollection. Now that's a risky thing to say on air, but
like I said, I haven't drank much this summer, and to me, it has a significant burn. I'm sure if I drank like 6 or 7 days in a row of one of these, it would be, but it does to me.
I was on that Jack Daniels tour, and some people were commenting saying, "Oh, now here's all the people on the tour." Now, you know, they paid the $17, and everybody was happy to be there. And people were saying, "Oh, it's harsh, it's harsh." And the tour guide got agitated. He said, "We don't say harsh here." That's the Brown-Forman company. He said, "We use the term bold." So he corrected everyone that they should not be saying harsh. He said, "We refer to it as bold." I said, "Okay."
So he's a tour guide / language police.
Yeah, because he talked to me about now this guy was, I mean, he was following his training, and I started picking up on what was happening. I'm sure in their training, the bottom line is protect the brand at all costs. Protect the brand. Your job is to protect the image of Jack Daniels, and you don't hold back or you know what I mean. You're going to have to be almost hostile if need be to protect the brand. So I was fascinated. You know, I'm sitting there for 2 hours and I'm listening to everything carefully. You know, and I talked about that conflict that developed with the 2 Scottish guys. And I just listened. I didn't say anything. I just said, "Oh boy, this is something else. This is almost like Detroit versus the New York Yankees." But and
Cabrera.
then
Cabrera versus, what's the catcher? I don't remember the catcher's name, but
yeah. So that was something to see. And then he talked about, which it was a very educational tour, because he talked about the single barrel sales. You know how they do single barrel, which was fascinating to me, because he basically explained that if you buy a single barrel, you're going to pay twice as much, but you're not actually getting anything better, because they just grab a barrel literally and say, "We're going to bottle all those bottles from this barrel." Okay, fine. And they'll put a number on it, number 756 from barrel number, whatever, which is fine. I mean, I understand people are very into that. I said, "Well, what makes it any different than regular Jack Daniels?" He said, "Well, nothing." He said, "It's the same ingredients." He said, "The thing about Jack Daniels is it's like a lot of these products." He said, they have this huge barrel house. You know, they might have 22,000 barrels in it. This is how big these things are. He said they go through there and they test them. If they're high on the high floor, they're in the heat. That's the best place to be, he said, because the whiskey likes heat, unlike beer, right? That needs to be in cold, dark. Heat, they want the heat. Now, if they're in the center of the barrel room at the bottom, they're in the cool. That's what they use for their green label, right? The number 7. He said, yeah. But what they'll do, they have a, like you said, a template. There's a template. This is what Jack Daniels should taste like. And the tolerances are narrow, very narrow. Same thing with Budweiser. I found that out from the tour. Same thing with Budweiser. They'll try different barrels. Too sweet, too harsh, too dull, too bold, whatever. They'll go through all these things and they'll start blending them. Or they start blending them. And you know what they do? They achieve what? The definitive Jack Daniels or the definitive Budweiser. I said, so basically, Jack Daniels is a blended whiskey. He said, oh, no. We call it mingled. He said, we don't blend whiskey, we mingle it. He said, blend it. He said, when you blend things, that's like putting it in a blender. He said, if you want to blend something, go put it in a blender and turn it on. I didn't argue with him. I said, oh, okay.
Shaken, not stirred.
Yeah, they don't blend whiskey, they mingle it. But it made sense, you know, if you can get through all the you know what, if you can look through the you know what, you can start to really understand how the process works, and it's fascinating. I would imagine that this product we're sampling tonight is also a mingled product. It's obviously not early time single barrel.
Not for $8.99. No, it's. But there's a lot of semantics that go on in the industry, and also a lot of semantics by people who actually review these products. One person's mild is another person's bland.
Mild or bland, right?
So many terms are you know, up to private interpretation.
And so I might use the term ordinary. Other people might use horse piss drained through a dirty sock.
Right. A little more. It's.
But
bold versus harsh.
There's no reference point for the urine because I don't know too many people that sample that. But like you said, that's all hyperbole anyway, and no one takes that literally. But of course, we've gotten into that in the past, that some of that stuff is a disservice to the reviewing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I read that entire article in Chicago Tribune about the best macro lagers, and the horse piss was not used once.
No, that was a serious article. I read the whole thing.
And I thought that was very one of the few times that those beers were given a fair shake. Everybody should read that. Whether you drink craft beer, you drink, you know, both, or you just like the macro lagers. It was a fair assessment from people who, you know, they had no reason to be on either side of the fence. And actually, they were craft brewers.
And it was blind. It was blind. That's very important. It was a blind taste test.
And there was a 5 systems, like 1 through 5. And the guy said before he can start, he can even throw out the first 2. It's not going to be either 1 or 2. They're not going to be bad or throwaways. So, I mean, you pull these people aside, these beers are not easy to brew. Light beer and the macro lagers, they're not easy to brew because any fault will stick out like a sore thumb. And they realize this, and they know what goes into brewing those beers. So, but I thought it was a very fair assessment, and I enjoyed reading it. There should be more like that.
Oh, that article was fantastic. I'm so glad you sent me the link, the attachment. Yeah. Now, you know, you're talking about difficult to brew. I would imagine that producing a product like Early Times would probably be pretty difficult to make it the same every time, right? I mean, it's just always the same, I would imagine.
Yeah, for quality control, it's so important because when you have a regular cadre of drinkers, there are probably many people that just drink only this.
Only Early Times.
Right, and they know what it tastes like. You know, you don't muck around with their product. And the quality control is very important.
Like these people, like these people next door to me. They drink a lot of beers as long as it's Bud Light. And they only drink it, and they drink a lot of it, and if there was any kind of imperfection, they would notice it in probably the second sip. So there are tens of millions of people a day. Now we laugh at that. Maybe we say, oh, they're stupid. They should try all the different brands. They're not real beer drinkers, right? They're not true beer drinkers. But you got tens of millions of people a day, just like the people next door that are consuming Bud Light in massive quantities each week. So if there's something off about it, I would imagine they would pick that up quick. But that's why they got all those. That's why every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon they fly in those samples from the 12 breweries, right?
Yeah. And that article made me reassess maybe the light beer category, which, you know, it was actually 2 of the top 4 were light beers.
Light beers, right?
Which was very surprising for me. But I've harped upon so many times that these beers is not what it's almost equally important. What they don't do is what they do. And people who these brewers, they look for faults, to them. And the fact that they, most of them, they didn't find any like really bad faults in it. That was a huge in the plus column for them because of that factor by itself.
Right.
Regardless of whether, their personal taste of it was.
Right. Even the ones that failed or got knocked out the competition weren't, you didn't hear any really, really horrible commentary about them.
No, the slowest score is a 2.7. And most of them are in the mid threes. And actually, Ham's got a 4.5.
And I thought one of the most important things about that was that it was blind taste test. And a lot of people talk. They'll talk big, but I don't see a lot of blind taste tests out there. I'm not saying people need to do it. I'm just saying I don't see a lot of it. I'll be right back. I don't see a lot of it. But if you do the blind taste test, it's a risk. It is a big risk because you just don't know what's going to happen. You think you know, but you don't know. Like this Kentucky gentleman. I mean, I was so confident I would have put money on that. In fact, that's why I was so careless. I said, well, heck, the audio was bad. I'll just do it on the Microsoft Internet Explorer, which always works fine, with the audio. And I poured them, and I just, going through the attributes.
How could the Colts lose Super Bowl III?
Right. It was similar to that. I'm thinking
19-point favorites.
Yeah, who is Joe Namath? I didn't care, So I'm just as confident. You'd never seen somebody more confident than yesterday morning. And if you watch the video again, you probably notice that I lifted up the glass and I looked at that label in my eye. You probably see my eyes got big as marbles. I was stunned when I saw that. I just remember I picked it up and I said, yeah, it's got so much more wood character, and you can pick up the char, and boy. And I looked at it and said it said KG. Boy, I could feel the sweat running down my chest. I said, oh my goodness. And then I said, well, can't delete it now. But
when it comes to drinking these products, there's a psychological element comes in play too. Some days they just taste better than others. Maybe you've had a good day, maybe you've had not so good a day, because these products can change flavor as you're drinking it.
Yeah, it's really weird.
But there's so many. They're so volatile. I think the beer so more so than the whiskeys or bourbons.
Yeah,
the beer is such a volatile beverage that it can change so quickly, and but the taste challenge is, I think it's fun, it's educational, and so, but you better be prepared to. You better have a thick skin, because you might get burned a few times.
Huh.
But that's all part of the whole process.
I've been burned many times, and then I got a few right. And Dr. Dave Coulter, he said, "Well, that didn't prove anything." He said, because you could have gotten a 50-50 shot. I mean, it could have been dumb luck. He said, to really prove anything, you'd have to get 4 different macro lagers lined up and then rotate those 4 and then try to guess. I said, yeah, but I'd probably fail. But I mean, he's right. But then it becomes a practicality issue.
But then you still have a 25% chance.
And that's not bad odds.
And then they would say, well, now you need to do 8. Then you have a 12.5% chance. I mean, where do you end?
Right. Then it becomes sort of a ludicrous thing. It doesn't, and people have to remember, there's no real point to it anyway. It's not like we're changing the world. It's sort of entertainment. It's not. People get caught up in it, and then they start to think, oh, this beer and liquor is so important, but in fact, it's not really.
The planet's not hanging on these taste challenges or anything like that, but
or these examinations and
all of it together. But
if you own the company or you own stock, well, okay, it's more important. In our case, we're just consumers. What difference does it make? Let me see about the comments and then we'll wrap it up. Jeff Mathis says, who you got on the Mayweather-McGregor fight? I figure Mayweather's going to, I'm just worried he might kill the guy. But, I mean, I don't know. You see these terrible upsets, but I'm not too concerned about that fight. It's sort of like one of these, I don't know. I don't want. I would say Mayweather. I don't want to get too much into that. Flacco says, "Oh, hey, Flacco." He says, "I went to Twin Liquor or the dollar deal today, and I picked up a few bottles. But picked up a few bottles of what?" Michael Fournier says, "Does Early Times use used Jack Daniel's barrels?" I cannot say that definitively. I'm suspecting that they probably do, because the volume of Jack Daniel's production is so huge that I would imagine there'd be an incredible excess of used barrels, since Jack Daniel's says they never use barrels more than once.
It would be pretty hard that they could avoid it if they wanted to.
Right.
Yeah.
And they say, of course, now Brown-Forman says that a great majority of their barrels are sold to Scotland, where they use them to make scotch. And they said scotch uses barrels for sometimes 100 years. 100 years. And that's where that conflict came in with the Scotsmen on the tour. Okay, CS1992 said he's drinking a Miller High Life as he watches. Oh, well, that's always a reliable product in my opinion. I can't disparage Miller High Life. I've never had any problem with it myself. Now. So anyway, I guess we exhausted this. Any last comments on the Early Times?
I was trying to see to make an equivalent in something else to what the Early Times is.
It did win a silver medal in the 2006 San Francisco World Spirits competition, by the way. Trying to think of a good comparison, huh?
Yeah, just something that, but for $8.99, I mean, like I said, I don't think many people will be disappointed for what they got. It's, I think, actually, the common phrase is it punches above its weight. I think this one does punch above its weight. That you're actually getting a lot value for your $8.99.
Yeah, I would say that for all the what you call, and that's what they are, because they are on the bottom shelf. For all the bottom shelf liquors I've purchased so far, this is the winner, the clear winner. There's no. Now, Ancient Age can give it a good run for its money. Now that's true, but it is $1 more a bottle, and $1 is a dollar.
Yeah.
But I've got nothing for $8.99 or less that could come close to this. Now I can say that in all honesty.
I think, and sort of make an analogy, this punches above its weight the same way that the McCormick's did in the 2080 category.
Right. Good.
So I think these are comparable products in different, maybe the bottom shelf than the sub bottom shelf. But this sort of reminds me of that, actually, but that it tastes better than what I was anticipating. I know the first one I drank, I thought so.
Yeah, okay, I'll go along with that, because I bought that McCormick in Texas and I thought, oh, well, this is going to be some throwaway. But I was shocked because it was much better than I had believed it would ever be. And that made me more interested to try more McCormick products, but I've not done it. But I did the Beams 8-star, and I did the, I don't know, I can't even remember. What are some of those other cheap? Kentucky Dale, yeah.
Do Kentucky Tavern.
I have not opened that yet.
Okay, that's
a bourbon. Well, that's a good example. Kentucky Dale, but McCormick beats that like a drum.
Yeah,
like a drum, and they're the same price. Same price. Now I haven't opened. Now the 8-star, to be fair, kind of falls in between. It's not up to the McCormick level, but it's not as. And the thing about Kentucky Dale, it didn't have any bad flavors. Just didn't have
much flavor.
Yeah, there was nothing there. I mean, If you want a bunch of alcohol with no flavor, it'll work perfectly. But if you want any kind of character or flavor, don't even bother with it.
Yeah, it was much more. When you take a whiff of it, it's the medicinal. You think of hospital, emergency room, something like that. But you're still getting your 40% alcohol.
And if that's your goal,
that's the bottom line.
Yeah, if your goal is 80 proof, Kentucky Dale is going to be a winner every time because you can get a bottle for $6.99.
80 proof works every time. That's just the way it is.
And there are millions of alcoholics that would make a strong argument for Kentucky Dale. So I'm not going to say, no, you're wrong. But if you're looking for any kind of flavor, you know, spend the $2 and get Early Times because you're going to get much better payoff. A much better payoff.
I mean, just think like something like a Earthquake High Gravity. That's 10%.
Oh yeah, and I can get it right here, but I won't.
And these bottom shelves are 40%. They're 4 times as much. So you know, you can do the math there. But
yeah, and if let's just say you're a problem drink. No, I don't want to go there. Let's say. Let me see how I can phrase.
How can you phrase this without being?
Yeah.
If you were so inclined to.
Let's say that you have an appreciation for high proof relative to price. Now that can be legitimate. So you put a strong emphasis on high proof relative to price. Don't go by the Earthquake High Gravity. Well, buy the Early Times, or in fact buy the Kentucky Dale, because you're going to pay $2.75 for a 24-ounce can of Early Times. Earthquake, and you're going to pay $6.99 for a 750 milliliter of Kentucky Dale. It's going to last a lot longer. It's going to last a lot longer. You wouldn't drink a bottle as fast as the Earthquake because you'll be probably not on this planet anymore.
It will last longer than you do. On that,
it will last longer than you do. But for flavor, getting off of that sort of touchy subject, if you're looking for flavor, Early Times is so far. Now this could change in the future, but up to this point, Early Times is the obvious winner. In my booklet, I don't know what you're thinking, but I think it's the obvious winner. Except for that catastrophic failure yesterday morning, which could argue against that, but let's hope people don't watch it.
Well, you know, everybody has the setbacks. You have to take it in totality. You know, it's
even Dale Earnhardt didn't win every race.
That's absolutely, and I mean, you have.
Yeah, you have some setbacks. Led Zeppelin made Into the Outdoor, but anyway, I better not start that.
Into here, I was just thinking about like a Hall of Fame manager, like Earl Weaver. He lost more World Series than he won. He's one of the best managers ever. I mean, he predated this sabermetrics and analyticals. He was doing all that stuff with index cards back in the day. So far ahead of his time, it wasn't even funny. But you know, you get in a World Series, things happen. You know, and then the Mets won.
I mean, Super Bowl III and Super Bowl IV are a perfect example of things happening.
In Super Bowl III, Earl Morrall was quarterback. United had been injured most of the year. I think Morrall actually won MVP that year. He stepped up from a backup position. In that game, Jimmy Orr was downfield. There wasn't anybody within 50 yards of him. He was waving his arms. Morrall didn't see him and instead threw the ball to number 45, Jerry Hill, Colt 45. But it was incredible how wide open he was, and Morrall didn't see him, and he tossed off a little short pass to Jerry Hill. Just a little bit of.
Yeah, and like the Baltimore Colts said, if we'd have played them 10 games, we'd have beaten them 9 out of 10. There's only one problem. The Super Bowl's one game. Eric Fraunfeld is saying, did I miss a discussion? Yeah, but you could join us if you got the Early Times. I'm gonna respond to him. Eric loves these things. Yeah, but if you've got Early Times. Jump on in. They did have to admit they wanted to join. What, remember we did the cheap whiskey? Is it okay to drink cheap whiskey? And they went out and bought the Old Thompson, because they were saying, oh, we can't get that in Massachusetts. I said, you're wrong. And I looked it up on the internet, and I found a liquor store about 2 blocks away where they could find Old Thompson. They went out and bought it for $7.99, and they said, oh yeah, it's not too bad.
Old Tom.
Yeah, and Nate K said, I could use this for cooking. This would be perfect. So they didn't lose anything on that end of the deal. Eric says, oh, I do not. I'm going to say, well, if you ever get a mind to buy some, I believe you might be pleasantly surprised.
I think I just thought, this is the Jenny Cream Ale.
Oh, now.
I was thinking. I knew.
Yeah, it took you 45 minutes, but you got it. You nailed it. Now, Jenny
Cream Ale of the whiskey.
That's a good analogy. Early Times is to cheap whiskey as Jenny Cream Ale is to cheap beer. Yeah, there we go. That ought to be the title of this. Early Times is to cheap whiskey as Jenny Cream Ale is to cheap beer. Well, that's perfect. Now, Eric's got to hang out, looks like. So, oh, boy. I don't know, Eric.
What is it?
Oh, that's right. I do have a little cushion on my quota. Forgot about that. Well, I might join that and see what's going on over there. All right. Well, so we talked about it for a long time and to no particular purpose. But those, if anybody wants to watch it, if you don't watch, if people say, I'm not watching this for a damn hour, I wouldn't oppose that work in theory. But anyway, so the bottom line is it doesn't take an hour to figure this out. It probably takes about 5 minutes. Early Times is a good value. End of story. You go along with that?
I will.
So William, you're going to get to me off air, and we'll talk about setting up a I can't remember what it was now. The Schlitz Gold Bull.
Yeah.
Check with me if you want to tackle the Gold Bull.
That's one I don't think I've actually had.
You never had the gold. You've never had the gold.
The Colt 45 high gravity, which is a gold and black. It's a black and gold label. I've had the other 3. Wait a minute. I think I've had it one time, the gold, because the red, when I bought it, that completed the quartet. But it's been so long ago. That was last summer, I think. So I don't really have any lasting memory of it. I'm not literally lasting memory. don't take that literally, but but it'd be nice to revisit it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. So hit me up in the next couple of weeks if you get a hold of it.
Yeah, I've been buying singles here lately because I've got a pretty good stock of the Edge. I bought another Hamm's 24-pack. I've got some Pabst Blue Ribbon. I got a few Miller High Lifes and a few Schlitz left, so I'm well stocked with that. And I've been sort of choosing a few craft beers and the ones that I got a couple cans of Bush. You did for that and a few other things.
Okay.
So, and when fall comes, I might be trying to make a road trip. I've got a few in my mind, maybe late September, early October, something maybe, when I sort of drink down the stock I've got now.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
I've got a few in my target, in my sights that I like to try to get.
Yeah. I'm trying to do the same thing, break down the stock and see what I can target. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. And I might go jump over to Eric and see what they got going on over there.
Yeah. Last night, it seemed like everything I say, something happens. Last night I mentioned about the base. I've been talking about that Injustice for All here, like crazy late. Today, there's a brand new video on YouTube, Loudwire, which talks about that. The engineer who did that record is speaking out. It's dated 25th of August.
He's been taking the abuse, but he says that he was told to do that.
It's dated the 25th, August 25th, 17. Loudwire, and I said, well, I've been beating that dead horse here for all lately, and I mentioned it last night. It all goes back to the old crow when I start talking about that. Then the ham. Everything is in Mike. It just I better be careful what I say.
Yeah, because we've been trying to figure this out for 29 years now.
Yeah.
And Justice for All. So, but yeah, so don't yell at him too much when the man was told to do it by one of the more notorious figures in the rock world. But I don't want to say any names. But
it was like, well, he said, turn it down till you can barely hear it. Then he said, now go down 5 or 6 more decibels. You know, it's one thing to razz a guy and haze him because for something he had nothing to do, a part of Cliff Burton's death. But some of the stuff they did to him is just beneath them. I mean, it's sick. It's childlike. It's more than childlike, but he didn't have anything to do with that.
No, that was deranged. And I don't know.
The fact that they would put out something like that, the record company should have sued those guys to put out a product like that they knowingly done that. It's almost like they were sabotaging their own record. That was
Capitol, no.
Electra Asylum at that time.
Oh yeah, Electra Asylum. Yeah, that
was our major label deal. Now they own all those recordings. Now it's their own label, but back then they were part of Electra. But
I think the record company probably could have won that lawsuit.
I think so. Absolutely. You know, they had a few witnesses like the mixer. Hetfield, they could have called Hetfield as a witness. He was in on those conversations, and I'm sure a lot of other people heard it also. But that's
Newstead couldn't say anything because he was just new into the group. He didn't want to destroy his.
Yeah, he didn't want to rock the boat. I mean, he was glad to. I mean, he went from Flotsam and Jetsam to Metallica. He went from the outhouse to the penthouse. Speaking of groups.
But when I first heard that album and I bought it, I must have bought it the day it came out. I knew something wasn't right. It just seemed, it was strange. It was like when you drank like we talk about beer and liquor, you drink it and say something's wrong with this product.
But the fact that, they released that like a haphazard fashion. Somebody like a Steely Dan would slave over one note of music for a month to get it perfect. And most of them, a lot of them are concerned about the sound quality because you're paying actual money for it.
This is a double album we're talking about.
Yeah,
not an EP.
And the fact that just came out today on YouTube for Loudwire. That's Stephen Thompson, the mixer of that. He tells his side of the story on record. And,
I'm glad to hear that because that was an atrocity. All right, well, we better not get caught up in that, people.
That's right. That's another
10-hour broadcast.
And just for
All right, y'all
take track because they were long songs.
Very long, very long.
So it would take a while to go through each one of those tracks. But
Beavis Chaka says they got the 40-ounce bottles of Coors Light here. Yeah, we get those too, by the way, in glass. We get them too. Beavis says Crystal Palace brand are the cheapest and a go-to for the lowest price. Yeah, Crystal Palace is very cheap here, the gin, and it's very popular. All right, well, thanks everybody for watching, and y'all take care now.